Back with us on the SportsMax zone. Good to have you wherever you are watching us this afternoon. Well, we continue to investigate the irregularities surrounding the contract signed by the Englishman Terry Fenwick with the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, the TTFA, to act as senior men's head coach. On Tuesday's show, we posed the following questions to the duly elected president of the TTFA, William Wallace. First question, what was the proposed monthly salary in the Fenwick contract discussed at board level? 2, what was the monthly salary in the contract that Fenwick signed? If the monthly salary figures are different, did the board approve the figure that Fenwick actually signed to? And 4, if not the board, who authorized the monthly salary figure that Fenwick signed to in his contract? All right? So here we are now, because a lot has happened today. I've been working my sources overnight trying to find William Wallace. And I've told you on this show already that I've had a few conversations with individuals who are very close to Wallace, and they've offered up an explanation for the issue concerning Fenwick's contract, but they've been unable to deliver Wallace so far. And as we said yesterday, Wallace is usually a man who keeps his commitments to SportsMax, who is often available at short notice to speak to issues concerning football, whether at the level of the SSFL, the Secondary Schools Football League, or in his time as TTFA president, and even before when he was campaigning for office, and he campaigned on a platform of transparency, full disclosure, and inclusion. Well, I want to tell you that Wallace did speak to me directly, and I'm going to share a bit of what he said. Before I share a bit of what William Wallace said, I just want to go to the document of the contract that Terry Fenwick actually signed, because I think it's important to lay down the basis for all that is to come after. What we have shared with you since last Friday was a few pages of the document. Well, were a few pages of the document, specifically the part which spoke to the amount that Fenwick signed to receive each month. With the full document in tow, and I brought the hard copy just for reference, we have put in graphics a couple parts. So this is page 1. Page 1, right. So this page speaks to the attorney who was used by the TTFA in this regard, and the attorney who signed, Ravi Rajkumar, attorney at law, 113 Oxford Street, Port of Spain. And they said that this contract for services is dated January 1, 2020, between the TTFA, Terence William Fenwick and it gives Terry Fenwick's address in TNT. If you go to page 2, which we have shared with you already, and if we shift there we go, we shift the lower third to give you a better perspective. Again, this is old news for you. The point 3, which concerns the quantum of Terry Fenwick's monthly payment. If we go to page 10 of the document, where we have signatures on this agreement, and I'll wait till you get to page 10, Mr. Producer. So 17, 18, you are, there we go. Good, first schedule, good job. Page 10. So signed by Terence William Fenwick, that's one signature. Then page 11 now of the document, Fenwick's contract, has what looks to be William Wallace's signature at the top as president, beside his name, and then there's another signature, Ramesh Ramdan. Now there's an issue concerning, stay with this page, whether Ramesh Ramdan is empowered to sign in the capacity that he has, because it does say in front of you there in black and white, corporate secretary, having been the duly authorized representative of the board of directors. But Ramesh Ramdan is the general secretary, right? So the question is, can the general secretary sign a contract like this as a corporate secretary? Well, I can tell you that I have taken legal advice. I've spoken to senior counsel operating in the Commonwealth who advised me that, well, George, it's not that great an issue because it depends on how the General Secretary is empowered by the Constitution to function, and if it is a norm for the General Secretary to act in that manner on behalf of an association, a board, or a body. So in that respect, it isn't necessarily a wrong thing for Ramesh Ramdan in his capacity as General Secretary and not a member of the board to sign as a corporate secretary. Even though there have been people at the TTFA who've said, well, 2 directors should sign such a contract. And given that the General Secretary, Ramesh Ramdan, is not a director, his signature is invalid on the document to start with. I'm just raising these issues and asking the questions. It's for you to consider if the contract was properly executed, given that one man who signed, William Wallace, is the chairman of the board of directors as president. Ramesh Ramdan is the General Secretary, not a member of the board of the TTFA, and if he is so authorized to sign in the way he did. I also asked about the fact that the pages of the contract I have here are not initialed. Usually, the pages of contracts like these are initialed, and senior counsel said once again, well, if there's no provision on the pages for initials to be put in, and then no initials are put in, it's not a significant injury. If this becomes a court matter, it just comes down to the signatures on the appropriate part of the contract. Now, I'm showing you the full contract as signed by Terry Fenwick to just establish in fact the basis for the questions that we're about to ask. Let me move now to the fact of William Wallace. I was told by his close colleague that William Wallace was attending to a personal matter concerning a family member who was experiencing some challenges, and that was why he was unavailable to speak with us here on the SportsMax Zone. That's fair. A man has to take care of his private business. But about 67 hours after initially asking the questions of William Wallace and making repeated appeals to William Wallace to speak with us about the issue of Terry Fenwick's contract, and after our producer getting in touch with him and speaking with him, William Wallace emerged to send me a WhatsApp message. Now, I did not clear with him the sharing of the WhatsApp message with my TV audience because that's proper protocol to do. But I did ask him a question after he explained something to me. He did not respond. So we didn't finish the conversation naturally. So I'm sure he will extend pardon to me for using a part of that WhatsApp message in the absence of him live on the other end of this line talking to me to explain the issues for your benefit. So this is what he said when I forwarded him the 4 questions we asked on the show yesterday. He says, Fenwick's monthly salary, as agreed by the board, is $17,500 US. After that figure was agreed upon, Terry on his own got agreement from sponsors for an additional $2,500 US, which was inadvertently added to the contract when it was drawn up. He continues, the monthly obligation of the TTFA to Terry is $17,500 US. This error is being rectified presently to reflect the above mentioned clarification in his contract. Now I want you to digest that. I want you to digest the explanation given by William Wallace. So he is agreeing that the $17,500 that the board approved and which was to have been given on a contract to Terry Fenwick to sign was not given to Terry Fenwick to sign, but a contract for $20,000 US per month was actually what was signed, and that the difference between the $17,500 approved by the board and the $20,000 which Terry Fenwick actually signed, that difference of $2,500 represented funds raised by Fenwick himself through sponsorship. That was reflected in an article posted, as I said, moments before we came on air, in an article on wired868.com, where he gave quotes to the writer in explaining the situation. So, Wallace's response has raised some additional questions. We put 4 questions out yesterday. We're going to put 11 questions out this afternoon. So, where this additional $2,500 US is concerned, Mr. Wallace, the first question is this. One, from whom did Terry Fenwick negotiate this amount? Or with whom did Terry Fenwick negotiate this amount? One. Two, have you or the TTFA done due diligence on this sponsor or these sponsors? You use the plural in your explanation to me, but I saw you use a singular in the Wired 868 article. So have you or the TTFA done due diligence on this sponsor? Three, what has your due diligence shown? Four, if, as you say, this represents sponsorship, what duties does Fenwick have to perform under the terms of this sponsorship? And hold it right there. We're at 4. Hold it right there. This is a very important question. If it is that Mr. Fenwick has gone off on his own to get sponsorship to bump up his own pay, clearly, if it is sponsorship, you have to have the person who is being sponsored perform some obligation to the sponsor. What obligations are those is what question 4 is asking. Question 5. Which member of the board did Fenwick share news of this sponsorship with? Question 6. Which member of the board or other TTFA official did you, William Wallace, share news or share details of this sponsorship with? Question 7. By what process or circumstance did Fenwick's own negotiated sponsorship with a third party end up in a TTFA contract? And hold it right there, Mr. Producer, because this is another very important question. They're all important questions, but this one is particularly so. How did what Fenwick under his own steam go and negotiate and come back to you and say, well, yes, I have been successful in getting an additional amount, $2,500 more? Explain how it is that total ended up in a contract belonging to the TTFA. Very important question. Are we at question 8? Let's go. Who is responsible for, as you say, inadvertently adding Fenwick's personal sponsorship to a TTFA contract? Which individual, Mr. Wallace, added Terry Fenwick's negotiated amount to the TTFA contract? Very important again. Question 9. Isn't it true that the TTFA board did not see the contract that Fenwick actually signed? Isn't it true that the TTFA board did not see the contract Fenwick actually signed? My attorney friends would say, George, this is a leading question, but sometimes you have to lead along a certain line. Next question. Isn't it true that this Fenwick sponsorship deal was not shared with the board? Next question. What set of circumstances, this is question 11, the final one. What set of circumstances prevented you, William Wallace, from sharing the actual contract details and the so-called sponsorship amount from the Fenwick contract with the TTFA board? These are 11 questions the SportsMax Zone asking of William Wallace to understand what happened with the contract. Because guess what, William? It appears the board negotiated something. You came under some duress from some other party. And that duress you came under motivated you to change the amount on the contract that the board negotiated and expected you, in good faith, in the discharge of your duties as president of the TTFA, you changed the amount that the board approved and had Fenwick sign to something more. That appears to be what has happened. But again, we're not firing at you, William Wallace. We're just asking the questions. And those 11 questions, we believe, answered properly, can explain the process involved in this situation and how it is that your board, because effectively what's happening is this, the TTFA board has instructed its president to act in a certain way, and it is obvious and clear that the president chose to act in another way. That maybe gives rise to a 12th question, Mr. Producer. Why? Mariah, these are interesting times.
I have some questions of my own now, because why 5 months later? Why an administration that had said from the onset that there will be an open book with everybody, why are we asking this question 5 months after the contract was signed? Another thing is, if it indeed is a sponsor and all these different things, so what's going to happen to the sponsor now? Is it that why are you going to change the contract if it really is so? If you can prove to us that you have a sponsor and this is the reason you added these things, what happens to the sponsor now? Is it because of COVID-19 that the sponsor pulled back and why now rectify?
You're giving them an excuse already.
No, but I'm thinking, like, why rectify it now? What's happening? So what's the relationship with the sponsor? Who is the sponsor?
Well, I can answer one of your questions. Why rectify it now? It is being rectified now because we raised it. Because it's not a situation. So just walk with me here. We've been careful not to make any accusatory statements.
Definitely.
Yes? Very careful to do so. But what I'll say on the front foot is this. This rectifying of the contract is only happening because SportsMax has shone the light of scrutiny on this contract signed by Terry Fenwick. It's not as if the TTFA was in the process of rectifying the contract and we got wind of it and we are reporting it. No, we've started asking the questions. As I remind you, we first asked the question here last week, Friday.
And George, how do you make errors where money is concerned, especially when your organization is riddled with debt? I would want every amount of money to start paying back my debts.
And that is a question, and that's why I asked who it is that inadvertently added. Let's look at it in practical terms, Mariah. Fenwick goes and gets his own sponsorship, and the due diligence questions are pointed. What obligation does he have? What is the background of the sponsor? What is it about the sponsor's business that could come into conflict with the business of the TTFA? These things need to be stated on the table. Yeah? And why is it and how is it that the man's personal $2,500 came to now be an obligation of the TTFA? Because based on the contract, the $2,500 that has been added to the $17,500 US now rose into a $20,000 sum that the TTFA is obliged to pay. The man has it on paper. This is the contract. As we say in this part of the Caribbean, Mr. Wallace, how come?
George?
How come?
When we get sponsors on the show, what do? We promote them, right?
Oh, yes.
That's what we do.
Oh,
a sponsor, I give you my money to promote me all over, everywhere. This sponsor is silent.
Well, that's why we've asked, what duties must Mr. Fenwick, what is he obliged to do in performance of this sponsorship? Because he now has a contract with the sponsor. What is he obliged to do under this contract? So, Mr. Wallace, if you're not too busy, and we hope that your family is well and they're over that issue which detained you for the past few days, we're hoping that you find the time to be able to answer these 11 questions. My producer has been briefed. He will be sending these questions to you in short order for your response, and we look forward to hearing from you. And where the TTFA is concerned, we're not quite finished yet because we have the issue of the Avexport contract to ask questions about, and there's another contract as well, but you know, I'm keeping my powder dry on that one. We take a break, we come back with more of the SportsMax Zone.